Well, I was hoping for my first video for the channel to be under slightly more pleasant, slightly more cheerful circumstances than a 2-1 loss at home to Leeds, but it is what it is. Let's get into the match and where it went wrong right now. First of all, terrible start to the match. Calvert-Lewin had a great chance early on, defense all at sea, and that was a pattern we didn't learn from. And I have to say, if we go through the man for man, certain place. Oh, there was one thing that was apparent from minute one until probably Casemiro getting the equalizer. We were flat. There was one team interested in getting the 3 points today, and it wasn't Manchester United. There was one team fighting for relegation and desperate for every single blade of grass to be covered, and it wasn't Manchester United. Yoro had an absolute stinker, and I have to say, it's almost two seasons now, 2 complete seasons, and I'm waiting for the real Leny Yoro to stand up. I am not giving up on him yet, but in the first half, he gave up 5 clear chances, and in fact, 2 of them led to a goal. Now, I know you might say that he was a little bit unfairly treated by the first goal in terms of being muscled off it, but that's my point. I would say he shouldn't get muscled off the ball in that situation. The second goal, he turns his back on the ball. You cannot do that. Listen, even the best defenders in the world, I remember Nemanja Vidic doing it away at Man City in the 07-08 season, a match that we'd go on to lose, but of course, a season where we'd go on to have, obviously, Champions League and Premier League glory. So even the best it can happen to, but it's a mistake. And the problem was, it was compounded by the fact that he'd been out-muscled for the first goal. And there were other errors. There was another time when he just gaffed in terms of controlling the ball. There were other moments when he was letting... You could see why, by the way, today, United have conceded so many goals from corners. United have the third worst defensive record from corners. And you can see why today. And Yoro was at fault again for giving a free header to one of the Leeds opposing players. Listen, Yoro wasn't the only person, of course, at fault. Martinez didn't have his best day, hasn't played for a while. He, of course, ended up getting a red card for a silly pulling of the hair. He probably didn't even realize it was violent conduct, but unfortunately, according to the rules of the game, it clearly is. You can't be doing that. Off you go. I guess in terms of Martinez, there are a couple of narratives. First of all, he didn't have a great first 45 minutes, but he did save our bacon with an incredible block on the line at one stage that would have been goodnight Vienna had it been 3-0 going in at half-time. He is our best defender when fit. I know there are some calls for getting rid of him, but I just don't think you can afford to let your best defender go in a summer that's already going to see an overhaul to the midfield. I don't really want to be having surgery occurring on a part of the team that I actually don't think needs it necessarily. As Colin Miller pointed out, though, on Twitter, no team in the Premier League, in his opinion, has as big a difference between the first team and its backups. And it was clearly exposed today. I mean, we've got all this time off. Imagine if we didn't have all this time off in between matches. I've got a tweet here from Andy Mitten. Woeful first half did the damage, then went down to 10 men. Much better with 10. Bad night for Man United overall. First home defeat under Michael Carrick. I mean, Leeds being 6 clear of the relegation zone, I guess at least means Spurs are that bit closer. Yeah, coming back to Colin Miller's tweet that I want to highlight, that I have retweeted as well. Man United have gotten away with it this season because of only playing 1 game a week, but the lack of depth in quality is really striking. No Premier League team has such a fall-off in quality between their starting 11 and squad players. Also, Rich Fay here tweeting, if you want to know why United gave Harry Maguire a new contract, just look at how they've defended without him tonight. Oh, I mean, let's go through it man for man, by the way. No fault, I think, really can be apportioned to Layman's in terms of the 2 goals conceded. He was awfully exposed by the back 4 in front of him. Right back, Mazraoui shows why he is a long way away from the first team, in my opinion. He's someone else I think is a maybe for staying this summer. Personally, I would probably keep him but I think he's no more than a Carling Cup, Carabao Cup, whatever you want to call it, player. Luke Shaw doesn't offer that same threat going forward as he used to. And I don't agree with Tuchel on everything, but you can see why he's been overlooked for the recent England get-together and almost certainly won't be going to the World Cup. And it is an area of the team that I think will be looked at in the summer, in particular with Hall from Newcastle, perhaps coming in as being a long-term replacement for Luke Shaw. He wasn't the worst culprit tonight, by the way. As I say, I've got Leny Yoro in particular at the back. Of course, Martinez getting the red card doesn't help. And by the way, without the Martinez red card, given how we played in the last half an hour, I think a draw was very, very gettable today, and still nearly got it with some clearances off the line and a few other things as well. What else getting into that match? Well, let's have a look at other players as well. We've already spoken about Yoro. We've already spoken about Martinez, Shaw, and Mazraoui. Ugarte, where do we stand on him? I mean, I don't think there's anywhere you can stand other than suggesting he's got to leave this summer. The record, by the way, with Ugarte that was highlighted on social media before the match got underway. As soon as I saw the team sheet and I saw that Manu was out injured, I saw that Dallo was on the bench through illness. Obviously, Maguire suspended. Dorgu, De Ligt as well, more long-term injuries, although hopefully Dorgu will be back soon. But I did fear the worst looking at that team and knowing how desperate Leeds would be. And they came out firing and we were just so flat. I know I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Anyway, I digress. Manuel Ugarte made his first start tonight under Michael Carrick, probably his last. I mean, he last started under Darren Fletcher in the FA Cup loss at Brighton. And United had only won one of the 9 games that the Uruguayan had started until tonight. He's now it's a 1 in 10 record, which is basically relegation form when Ugarte starts. It was obviously the problem with the Ugarte, and by the way, I'm picking out 2 players tonight, Ugarte and Yoro, which were bought as part of the same deal, and the desperation with which the powers that be United had to be to get Leny Yoro over the line meant that they basically took Ugarte for the team. What an expensive error that turned out to be. And if Leny Yoro doesn't turn out to be the Franz Beckenbauer that some people believe he will be, then it'll be even worse in terms of this situation. But we can only deal with it as it is now. And yeah, if somebody can take him off our hands for 20 million plus, that would be amazing. Yeah, I remember he's ponderous in possession. He's slow across the pitch. He doesn't retain possession enough. He's not tigerish enough either for that holding role in terms of if he is going to sit in front of the defense. Yeah, listen, maybe he'll go on and have an incredible career elsewhere, but he's not where we want to be and where we want to be going. Bruno Fernandes maybe didn't have his best game tonight, but he did work his socks off. Covered every blade of grass where possible. I saw some deliveries from him near the end that looked a bit tired, understandably so. But this loss is nothing on him. He still played some excellent moments. And that ball he put in for Luke Shaw near the end that nearly created us an equalising opportunity was just sensational. This desperation for him to get the assist record, by the way, is a bit weird. Great if he gets it, but I just want wins, yeah? And if he goes and scores 5 goals between now and the end of the season, but he doesn't get the assist record, I don't really care that much. It's nice, but it's just not that big a deal. I'm a bit perturbed as to why so many people think it is. Cunha didn't have his best night either, but there were some flashes from him. Again, he's way down my hit list. Casemiro, likewise. I think at times he can be a bit ponderous, and I think it's got worse because it was alongside Ugarte today, not Manu, who, of course, was unable to play due to a Manu injury. Smiles aside. But no, I mean, obviously he gets the goal. He has a header cleared off the line. Again, he's absolved of too much blame tonight. The issues we had were certainly elsewhere on the pitch. As for Amad Diallo, there is an unbelievable player there, and we see it. We do see it. We just don't see it often enough. We saw it in flashes tonight as well. But there's 2 or 3 things that bother me about Amad. Well, one particular thing in particular, it's his confidence. Sometimes I'll see him beat a player and then come back and let the player back in and have another chance to Yeah, and it drives me nuts because I know there's an excellent player there. Now, I'm not saying we should be shipping him out in the summer. I think we should definitely pursue with him. But yeah, a frustrating night for him tonight and a little bit of where he's at right now. Benjamin Sesko, again, is also a confidence player. And there was a moment in the first half tonight when I heard the commentator. Oh, by the way, we had Stephen Warnock on my commentary tonight, who's just a terrible football pundit who knows very little about the game and shouldn't be anywhere near a commentary box or even a football stadium, perhaps, given how little he seems to know about the game. I heard him say something about Sesko in the first half of, oh, well, Sesko's not got pace. And I was like, listen, Sesko has strengths and weaknesses and may end up going on to be a Man United legend. But I don't think you can question his pace if you saw the goal he scored against Everton, and I've seen on occasions. I think there was a belief situation with him tonight in that first half when he was kind of through on goal, but I think he needed to drive forward more than just put on a burn of pace at that stage. And I do think that there is still confidence issues. I think there's a player in there and perhaps another 18 months and a bit more confidence as well. And I think we might well see it. But tonight wasn't his night either. But again, my charge sheet begins with Leny Yoro, has a diversion via Martinez and Mazraoui, and ends in Ugarte. Those players either didn't have their best night for one reason or another, or in the case, I think, of Ugarte in particular, and to some extent Leny Yoro, they're just not shown themselves over the last 18 months or so to be of the standard required. And the standard required at the moment is actually not as high as it could be. As in, like, we're only playing once a week, although in this situation, once every 3 weeks, having not played since the draw at Bournemouth. As for the substitutes, Dallo did fine when he came on, and I think he was much missed. Mbeumo, 50-50 in terms of his substitute appearance tonight. And by the way, did Carrick make the changes and decisions early enough? I think there's a question to be asked. I will say this, though, about Carrick. Even if he was a bit lackadaisical in terms of some of the alterations, I do think that he did go for it. You know, by putting Casemiro in a defence and pushing on players like Leny Yoro towards the end and taking those risks. And I think it spooked Leeds. And that's one of the reasons why we came close to get back in the game. So that's a feather in the cap for Michael Carrick. What is not a feather in the cap, though, is how undermotivated we were in that first half. Just lacking drive, lacking oomph, lacking interest. It looked like there was one team desperate for the points and another one thinking, we've got 6, 7, 8 games in which to pick up the 3 or 4 wins we need to secure Champions League qualification. And who knows, the way teams like Chelsea and Villa are playing at the moment, we might not even need that many games. I guess if we avoid defeat against Chelsea and Liverpool, for example, in the weeks to come, that will be a huge step as well towards Champions League qualification. But just looking at this bench, by the way, Tyrell Malacia, that substitute performance that he had against Newcastle. If you weren't sure about Malacia before, that told you everything. He's got to go in the summer. Heaven, I think, will be disappointed that he wasn't in the starting 11 tonight, bearing in mind how badly the back four played. And I think he's probably ahead of Leny Yoro at the moment, but obviously with all the, in my opinion, with all the injuries and suspensions, we've got Maguire, who's had a 1-game suspension, which may yet get extended because of how he reacted after getting the red card against Bournemouth. Fingers crossed that doesn't get extended because we need him back. We need De Ligt back, but I'm not sure we'll see him playing again this season. But yeah, Heaven may well be required to play and could well be alongside Leny Yoro for our next game against Chelsea on Saturday night. Mason Mount, by the way, is just clearly someone that Michael Carrick doesn't trust at all, because when you've got a situation like tonight where we need a goal, we need some attacking players on the pitch, we've got 1 or 2 absences from the team, and in particular in midfield in the form of Kobe Mainu, and it would have been a logical thing to put him on, for example, instead of Ugarte as we were chasing the game. But clearly, unlike his predecessors, Ruben Amorim and Erik ten Hag, he doesn't rate Mount at all. I kind of do, And I do think that he should have got some minutes tonight as we were chasing the game. As for Joshua Zirkzee, I personally think he should be shown the door if there's a possible suitor this summer. But that is a debate perhaps for another day. As far as tonight's concerned, Brian Mbeumo, when he came on, he's someone as well, I would say, since the turn of the year. In fact, since he came back from the African Cup of Nations, has not shown anywhere near enough quality to be worthy of a starting place. I think he's been lucky to be pursued with until now. And again, tonight, there were some moments where he should have been putting crosses in when he had the ball out on the wing. There was one or two other times when he kind of had a chance, but just pondered on it a little bit too long, giving the Leeds defenders a chance to snuff out the opportunity. But listen, again, that is perhaps for another day. As for the coach, Michael Carrick, a step back, but not necessarily a decisive one. I think there's some praise with the last half an hour in the structural changes, in the fact that we managed to fight our way back in the game. And he did take some risks, even if it wasn't with the personnel. It was with some adjustments in terms of pushing players forward. Because listen, you've got to gamble. That's what Ferguson always used to say, yeah? If all else fails, gamble. As Rennie Mullenstein told me in the book that you can go and get yourself, Even the Defeats, available from all good bookshops and some bad ones. Rene, by the way, wrote the forward for that book, so thanks to him. But that's a digression. Back to this evening. It's a knock. We're lucky that we've only got this one game a week scenario, because I like Colin, do think that there are 7 or 8 players at United that are obviously worthy of their place in the squad and obviously worthy of their place in the first team. And I think we're looking at some of them right now. Lamans, of course. Bruno Fernandes, of course. Cunha. Yes. Cunha, by the way, I do think is someone who may be suffering a little bit because of he was purchased as a player who played in a 3-4-3 formation largely at Wolves last year. That is a formation, of course, that we hired Ruben Amorim for, and therefore he was bought under that guise, which made sense. Ruben Amorim is no longer, and now we're playing a slightly different formation. Is that ideal for Matheus Cunha? I don't know. Honestly, long term, we'll have to see. I do think that the ability there will make up for it. And I do like the engine he has. And even tonight, on occasion, when we were down to 10 men, he was the guy fighting back to defend, along with Bruno Fernandes at times. I know you were in trouble when you got Cunha and Bruno Fernandes as part of your back line, but that's, needs must tonight in terms of being down to 10 men. Coming back to Mbeumo, by the way, scored 20 goals last year for Brentford. This season, 9. In a slightly better team, maybe not much better, you might argue, but we would like to think, we're obviously top 3 at the moment. So, yeah. So, obviously things got off to a great start. I actually had some doubts about Mbeumo after his debut against Arsenal. And I know what you're thinking. You can't judge a player on one game. Of course I'm not. But I did see a guy snapping at his chances, somebody who felt the pressure on his debut at Old Trafford, etc., after a big transfer. And I paid close attention to him in the weeks that came, and he gets goals, and that's obviously good. Does he get goals that maybe you or I wouldn't score? I think I would score the one against Arsenal away, for example. I think I'd certainly score that one he scored against Wolves away. So that's a couple of his goals this season. Yeah, I always like to see a player that can do something a little bit special. And I've got my doubts about Mbeumo. That's what I'm saying. That's not me again. I'm not suggesting we should sell Mbeumo, not at all. I think he's had a decent first few months at the club, even if the last few months since January in particular, since Amorim went actually, maybe he's fallen off a little bit. Okay, let's end on some good news. Here's the table, ladies and gentlemen. And it reads pretty good reading compared to how it read 3 months ago after we last played Leeds and Amorim went. I think there's a case, by the way, that Ruben might have still had us in this position anyway. I think there's an argument. I'm not saying I agree to it or subscribe to it, but I don't think you can dismiss it, because we weren't that far off where we are now. We had that unbelievable start. I do think performances have to be taken into account when we consider the possibility of Michael Carrick getting the job. I think Carrick may well still get the job by default, because the powers that be can't get Luis Enrique out of his PSG situation. And then there's others, of course, in the form of Ancelotti and Tuchel that are made international commitments and certainly have commitments for this summer, but even beyond. Although personally, I'd have doubts about both of those. As long-term employees, I've got doubts about the way Tuchel plays. I think he's a short-term answer as well, as we saw on the odd occasion when he has had success at Dortmund or at Chelsea. As for Ancelotti, I think he's ideal for having a very successful club tick along with some megastars in the form of Real Madrid, AC Milan to a large extent in the 2000s. I'm not sure that he's going to get Everton, who are on the screen right now, into the top three in the Premier League, or Man United going forward necessarily. I think, and his age as well, I think he's probably quite suited to being the Brazilian national manager for not just this World Cup, but for beyond. So, Carrick, does he get it? Well, I think tonight has to be a slight jolt in that pursuit, as it is a slight jolt for Champions League qualification. We can see that the gap, of course, we now know that fifth will get Champions League qualification, and we are 7 points above Chelsea. We avoid defeat to Chelsea, I think, on Saturday. I said, actually, if we avoid defeat to Chelsea and Liverpool in the upcoming matches, we've got both before the end of the season. I think that should be enough. I think we can still obviously get third place. We're third at the moment. We've got a healthy goal difference advantage over Villa. The goal difference advantage over Liverpool is negligible because it's a 2-goal swing, which, assuming they close that 3-point gap and make the goal difference relevant, they will obviously gain a goal and we would obviously lose a goal, but quite possibly more. So that goal difference might well go in their favor, and same with Chelsea. That aside, things are still looking good for Champions League football. Maybe after tonight, less so for Michael Carrick's long-term chances as Manchester United manager. Thanks for tuning in to my first video. There will be many more, and there'll be plenty of live ones to come. Some will be post-match, some will be me alone, some will be with other people, all that other stuff. Hopefully, future videos will be under more positive circumstances. But in the meantime, thanks for joining. Get yourself a copy of Even the Defeats, which is probably quite relevant tonight, of how Sir Alex Ferguson used losses to inspire successes. And you know the drill. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell.